Well, hey everybody, welcome to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement nice, to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Androsian, and joining me today is Dylan Dodson.
Let's do it.
And today we're talking about 3 resources to help your church communications.
So here's the thing, whether you consider yourself, whether you have someone who's running your communication department or you're a church planner, so you're doing all of it, regardless, it's important, especially if you're in leadership in any capacity, to understand the importance of communicating, especially in our day and age with social media and engaging with people online. And so we want to give you 3 resources that can help you engage people better online.
Yeah.
And so the first one is Brady Shearer with Pro Church Tools. And if you can't pronounce or understand what I'm saying by his last name, just Google Pro Church Tools.
Yeah.
They have a lot of great resources. They even have a Pro Church Daily podcast, which you should listen to after this one.
For sure.
Every day talking about social media and the communications and resources. And because they do it every day, they even get really specific about individual platforms and email marketing and online stuff. They do a lot of stuff with church websites and that sort of thing. And so they just do, they give you a lot of tips and encouragement and kind of like, our slogan here about communicating better.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, they have a wealth of information. I mean, just the Pro Church Daily, obviously they do it every day, so you're going to have a ton of content there. But the cool thing about them is they have people that work in pastoral ministry on staff. Yep. So, sometimes you come across resources that's like, this is cool, but it's not really very applicable, or it's hard to actually figure out how to use that in our context, where they actually employ pastors to, help create this content. Yep. So you can, it's made for churches and it's not just like kind of ideas.
Yeah, and it's great, not just like seeing what they say, what you should do, but just following them online, following YouTube channel, seeing what the type of content they produce is also helpful to see, hey, is there anything we can emulate, anything we can learn from? Because they produce so much, there's always something you can learn. Sometimes when you have a lot of content, it can feel overwhelming. So it's not like you need to do everything today or tomorrow, but just learning different ideas and different things and finding, you're going to find something that applies to your context. And so we've just found, again, Brady Shearer with Pro Church Tools, just a great resource and engage people online, how to use social media, email marketing, website. There's a lot of great stuff there.
Yeah, and I'll probably say this a couple times in this episode, but one cool thing about them is they focus a lot on both smaller churches, smaller contexts, and larger churches. So they kind of have something for everybody.
Right.
They're not just talking about, hey, if you have this gigantic budget, then you should do this. They also spend a lot of time focusing on how to do stuff for dirt cheap, how to do, they have one thing they put out of how to do photography on an iPhone. Like stuff like that anyone, regardless of your size, can take stuff away from.
Which is particularly helpful, again, especially if you're a church planner with limited budget, because sometimes you see, resources for church communications and churches and all that sort of thing, and it costs money, and you need a large team to do it. And so it's like, well, that's great, but I can't do it. A lot of their stuff is applicable even on a really small budget.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really helpful. So Brady Shearer with Pro Church Tools, it's a great resource. Number 2 is actually a Facebook group literally called Church Communications.
Yeah.
So maybe you're familiar with this, maybe that's not. If you just type Church Communications, it will be the first one that pops up. Now, this group, there are pastors there, but there are a lot of people that are primarily church communicators. And so, again, some of that stuff, it could be multi-site, it could be large churches. There's a lot of different stuff there. But what I found most helpful about it is at least you get yourself in the mind of people who are doing this every day, and this is their main focus, to see what are the issues they're thinking through, what are the things they're trying to make, helps you understand the importance of clear and consistent communication. Because a lot of times, especially if communication in that realm isn't kind of something you're particularly interested in, you can not understand the importance of it. And the funny thing is, the biggest complaint I see in that group is these people are like, my lead pastor, my senior pastor doesn't understand that this is important. Doesn't understand that this branding is important, or that we're consistent here, or even like things of like how images should look and like announcements, all these sorts of things. They don't understand how important this is. And if they did, this would help our church tremendously. And so that's a great group, and I think you should check them out.
Yeah, cool thing about them is it's a group of, I don't know if you have any idea how many people are in it, tens of thousands probably. And so you have people in there that are, just church planners or pastors with no team that are doing everything themselves, that are trying to figure out how to make their first image. They've never done anything like this before, all the way to communication professionals, that's their full-time job in huge settings. There are people in there. This is kind of regardless of your thoughts of the church, this is kind of Elevation Church is kind of the go-to of social media and the ones that's kind of at the top of the line. And their social media team is in the group, so people weigh in that have tons of experience, and they even have sections and days that they encourage, hey, no stupid questions. Right. Any dumb question you have, if you can't figure out how to just make a graphic look nice or
Right.
something
Yeah.
your first time ever making it. They encourage that.
Like you're saying, it is cool because some people say, hey, anyone from Life Church or Elevation, they'll be like, you guys made this post. How did you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
really
it's
cool.
not, you don't just have to, if you're ever wondering about stuff like that, you don't just have to try and figure it out yourself. There's a whole 20,000 or whatever
Right.
people trying to do the same.
And again, there's a lot of posts on there. Maybe not all of that is relevant to your context, but
Yeah.
you will find some stuff that is helpful that you can apply. But you also get your mindset and be like, oh, I see why these certain things are important.
Yeah, for sure.
And so maybe it's stuff that you can't implement down the road, but it's just helpful to know, okay, here's some things I should be thinking about. And especially too around Christmas or Easter, around like certain times of the year, a lot of people are talking about those certain things. And so it just helps you think about those things.
Yeah, and one cool thing about it is if you're listening to this and you're in the very early stages, you haven't launched anything yet, and you're kind of your own team, don't have anybody yet, they encourage you to post, graphics and stuff on there just for people to critique. So sometimes you get kind of lost in your own vision of the way things are look, and it might look good to you and not to anybody else.
Yep.
So it's a good thing if you don't have a team with you to kind of bounce ideas off of other people.
Yeah. So number 1, Brady Shearer Pro Church Tools. Number 2, Church Communications Group on Facebook. They even have a website, but the group is really helpful.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is outside the church world. Guy by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk. Now it's a mouthful. If you just Google Gary V, he'll be the first one to pop up.
Yeah.
Just I give you a little pastor disclaimer here. He uses a lot of colorful language. But what's so great about Gary V is he talks a lot about content. Really, that's the main thing. Content, the types of content you should be producing. Some of this stuff, because I've been following him for a while, read a couple of his books. Some of the stuff is hard to translate into ministry world,
Yeah.
but still the ideas and to get you thinking is very, very, very helpful. And so some of the stuff that he talks about in terms of like building brands or marketing or being consistent or the social media platforms, one of the things that I appreciate about him is he often says, don't do what I say, watch what I do.
Yeah.
Because that will show you what's really important. And so again, not, lots of colorful language, lots of stuff, but I think sometimes we think that we can only learn from church people and then we miss out because, at the end of the day, God gives, there's, the common grace and there's wisdom that God has given just us as people, and we can learn a lot from them, and specifically him.
For sure. One thing that he talks a lot about that I think is really great for ministry is he talks a lot and has for years about how you need to give a lot to your, whether it's audience or fan base or whatever you want to call it, but give a lot more than you ask. So a lot of times, in the church world, when it comes to like social media and things like that, we do a lot of stuff of like, hey, sign up for this or come to this or do this thing. But what he's a big proponent of, and I agree with him, is he says, I don't know the exact formula he gives of how many more times, but give away more content and more information and more free stuff than you're asking.
And how it translates in the business world, then I'll explain how it translates in the church world. The business world, if you're giving free stuff, if you're giving resources, then like when you write a book or you do an online course, people will buy it just out of gratitude.
Yeah.
So and the reason is because they built trust. So for the church world, if you're not just posting, come to this event, read this Bible verse, sign up for this, but you're actually giving people value, then they begin to trust you. And so when you talk about spiritual things, they might listen, or if they live in your area, they might actually attend your church because there's a trust being built there.
Yeah.
We've talked about other episodes recently. I think it was episode 16, could be wrong, about 2 Facebook strategies about how to post more engaging content. But it's just about giving and helping people and building trust. And he does a great job of that.
For sure.
And so that if there's a product, if you're in the business world, people will buy. But in the church world, you want people to be able to connect with you. And if they have questions, you want to know that you can be a resource for them.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the cool things about the day and age that we live in is we can, as churches, engage people outside of Sundays.
Yep.
That wasn't always the case where that's an easy thing to do, but now it kind of is an easy thing to do, or at least we have those platforms. So all 3 of these resources, I think, are really great in figuring out how we can engage people outside of just them coming into our doors Sunday morning.
And probably the biggest thing that I think I just mentioned this from Gary Vaynerchuk that I appreciate is just content. What I learned from him is how much we do at New City. We do a lot of online engagement, a lot of content, because it gives more people more access for what you're doing. And so just producing a lot of content, good content, is helpful. But again, Gary Vaynerchuk, you can find him online, follow him on Twitter.
Yep.
It's helpful stuff. And he has a podcast. I haven't listened to his podcast, but I've listened to some other stuff he's done.
Yep.
And so those are 3 resources: Brady Shearer Pro Church Tools, Church Communications Facebook group, and Gary Vaynerchuk. And before we're done, we've got a bonus one.
Ooh, a 4th.
Number 4, here's just a bonus one. Hey, recently we started a Practical Church Planting Facebook group where we talk about online engagement and just everything in the church planting world. So go on Facebook, search the group. If you like our Facebook page, it's also linked, and get in the group, and so we can kind of talk about this more.
Yeah.
And that's another great resource.
Perfect.
So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully those resources were helpful. Again, if you ever have any questions about something you want us to talk about, maybe something you're in the early launch stage, you've just launched and you've got an issue you're struggling with, Go to practicalplanting.com/questions. Let us know. We can talk about it in a future episode. Until next time, we'll see you later on Practical Church Planting. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planting. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planting, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform.
And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast if you just search Practical Church Planting on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe.
See you next time.